Hey, welcome back. We have a knife here, one I've been wanting to check out for a while, but have not had the opportunity to, so let's get into it. Got a nicely packaged bubble mailer on top of box. Always the recommended approach for a slightly more expensive knife in this case. Now, can I get it out? That's another story, but that's more of a personal problem. Looks like it's taped in here. Oh, it's gonna give me some trouble. All right, we're cutting it out. This bubble mailer is not to be reused, apparently. All right, boom. We got the box, no personal info on it. Yeah, stoked to check this out. This is the Stang Bladeworks, Stang Bladeworks Pyrenees. And I happened to get this particular one from a guy who picked it up at Maker's Syndicate, so it's a slightly fancier version. All right, sorry for the unboxing there. It's always a fun part of the Pocket Priorities channel. How bad can he be? So we got the COA there, and let's jump right into it. Oh yeah, that is pretty sweet. That's a big honking knife right there. That is, we are not playing size. Ooh, pretty nice on the action. Pretty nice. All right, so what makes this particular Maker's Syndicate version a little more special? Magna Cuts, wedge, X-hatch milling with black Damascus accents. It looks like he runs a little bit of a pivot collar on these and a little bit of blade play. I can probably fix that on here. Now it does have a pivot hardware on both sides, so I might have to get two tools to do that. It looks like a T8 hardware. I was really curious to see how this would roll out, and ooh, almost not at all susceptible to lock bar pressure, so that makes me a happy guy. You got a Bill's custom case in here, a COA, Stang Bladeworks. Check out StangBladeworks.com. And it's LTD because he is based out of Canada. Okay, now I'm getting a little more acclimated with this thing. So what I want to do is put a decent amount of pressure on the lock bar and see if it rolls out. Now it does get a little tighter, but better, I would say, than like 90% of knives. It does get a little tighter, like that's definitely easier without any pressure. So you can get yourself caught up a little bit there. It probably doubles the pressure that it takes to roll it out, I'd say, about double. And this does run, by the way, on washers. I don't know if we're gonna be able to see that here. Probably not in the lighting I have right now, but it does run on washers, but it's smooth enough. It's not super obvious, honestly. Like I actually had forgotten that it runs on washers, so I'm pretty impressed by this action. Again, just a touch of blade play there, a nice sort of dark washed finish on the blade. Will it cut? Yes, indeed, I do believe it will. Let me get a piece of paper here. Let me give it a little cut test. Seems to be someone that cares about actually making it a usable knife, so that's good to see. What else? You got a little jimping on the top there. Jimping on both areas. It's actually two different jimpings, which stylistically I don't love, to be honest, but functionally it's great. Let's talk about the aesthetic, because I think that's probably one of the most polarizing pieces of this knife. Particularly with this interesting blade shape. It's like almost a harpoon, but kind of a rhino horn looking thing or something. Looks like a rhino kind of going on here. And I think functionally, this design is really great because it lets you get your thumb in there and really work it. It's a knife that's meant to be used as a knife. Let's just see if there's any blade play front to back, by the way. None. A nice early lock up there, and it does have an AEBL lock bar insert. That's pretty cool. Oh, and check out, we got some cool milling inside of this. Let's take a look. Made in Canada. You got the maker's mark in there. And then does it have a serial number on the knife itself? I don't think it does. At least I haven't seen it yet. Just taking a quick look. It does have milling out from inside the scales there, so that's cool to see. On that side, of course, you can't really do that with your lock bar pressure or lock bar side. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Let's get some measurements on this sucker and see how it weighs in versus what you might be used to out there. So here is a weigh-in. Sorry, let me back this off here. And we are weighing in at 5 ounces. Again, not a lightweight knife here. Let's do some size comparisons with some other big knives that I have in my knives that I have in my drawer here. So here is a Demco 8020, 7.6 ounces. Oz Roosevelt XL, 5.2 ounces. And then here you go, 5.075 ounces. So what I'd point out here is the size. And let's do it this way so you can really tell. It is right in here with the 8020 in terms of size. Very similar really in a lot of aspects there actually. Sorry, these are bigger knives, so we're not gonna be able to fit them on here as easily. So very similar size, like an Oz Roosevelt XL or Demco 8020. This is the sort of size range we're talking about. The handle itself is actually a little shorter than both, I think. So the handle itself, let me push these up so you can see that. Kind of get them at a similar handle position. You can see these two are slightly smaller than the Demco handle. These two are very interesting to put next to each other, actually. You've got a knife that isn't quite as tall as the Oz Roosevelt XL. And sorry again that this is actually, I guess I can do it this way for you just so you can see, but it'll make it look smaller, so it might look better this way. But not quite as tall. So thinner this way, and then a very similar length. Very similar knives in a lot of ways here. I can't quite, again, show everything here perfectly because of the positioning of the camera being horizontal. What else do I notice about it? Centering, nicely centered there. But it's a very long pocket clip. Let me give it a try really quickly here in the pocket. It goes right in, no problem. Maybe a little loose if anything, but goes right in there, no problem. Has a nice little snag at the end to stop it from coming out, but not quite as strong as what I'm used to probably. And it is very long, and it's not super deep carry because this kind of has some length here, but it does feel solid and stuff. And then you got a back spacer also here in the black Damascus, I think it was. Black Damascus on the back spacer. Now you can get this in a PJ for around $700, $725. I think this particular build was $900 at Maker Syndicate with the extra fancy stuff. So yeah, interesting. Feels pretty good in hand. It's a little bit of an extreme here on the angles. Like that's a pretty, you know, kind of like this, but it's sort of hard to explain the difference. There's some very, very close similarities to the Roosevelt design, but some very big differences. Like you achieve a lot of the same things with this knife. When you don't, the one thing about the Oz is the way that they design it, you don't have a cutout. So it always feels very good in the hand because this is the same, basically the same distance. And I'm not saying that's always my preference, but in this case, the Oz makes it so that you can close the knife, no problem. This one has slightly better access to the lock bar. But when you're grabbing it, you're not putting all your pressure on just one side of the scale. So you feel just the same here and here, but in this case, this doesn't feel quite as good when you're grabbing there on the lock bar. And in the case of a frame lock, there's some concerns there. If you're really wrenching on the lock bar, you prefer to be on this scale over here when you're really wrenching on it, right? So a few little considerations there. Overall, I really like the design. Kind of curious what happens. You do see, what is that there? Something passes outside of the scale slightly during the deployment. Locks up really nicely and everything though. This overall, and very easy to just have a ramped lock bar face or something. Not sure. Yeah. Sorry, let me look outside the camera. Yeah, it does have a little hole in there for the lock bar to sort of pop in and out of a little more easily. So it's very easy to actuate the lock bar. It does not take a lot of effort there. Yeah, just overall, a nice little knife, nice little, I don't know if you call it knurled milling or what the milling style was. Oh, they call it hatch milling on this, but call it what you will. Blade stock thickness, very similar here to the Oz as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting variety. I'd say it's a knife that wants to be used by someone that likes big knives. That would be kind of the best description I would give for it, but it doesn't feel quite as big because it's not as tall as the Oz. It feels a little more reasonable in hand and in pocket due to the dimensions and the design. Overall, it just seems like a solid big knife. Again, you push out here, it changes the style a little more function over fashion on this knife, I'd say, than some others in the segment. For instance, like if I'm thinking about a brown there, that's just a little more of a streamlined look, right? The lines all kind of go together. You're a little more function over fashion, I'd say, on the Stang here, but it does feel like a knife you could just really put to work, and I think a lot of people really like knives like that, frankly. That's pretty cool. At the price point for a PJ of $700, $750, it's pretty nice versus what's in the market, and with MagnaCut and, you know, a decent grind on there and everything. It's a nice made in North America knife. So I think that's all for now. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.